Hey, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Frank About Health. The date is April 25th, 2024, the fourth and final episode of Stress Awareness Month. And this episode is going to introduce you to Tanisha Naughton, or as otherwise known, Miss Wellness, where she will talk during the show about her own story and her own experience in dealing with stress and possible burnout, and she will also help us in understanding ways that she has been able to learn to help others overcome burnout, while at the same time she'll share with us about her practice that engages people in special retreats where people can gather and really convene with nature and just try to do their best ways of looking at life differently so that they don't have to get as stressed or as burned out in whatever is creating those triggers. Well, that being said, we are going to talk about something that has a sense of mental health or health related content. So I'll issue my typical disclaimer, which indicates that all the information is food for thought. They're not the views of Miss Wellness or Frank About Health or TalkRadio.nyc. It's food for helping you guys out there who's listening and viewing this podcast right now to determine if what you learn about might be helpful to you. We're not trying to dissuade you from ongoing treatments that you might be engaged in with your primary care physician or other mental health or neurological health provider. They're just rather, again, thoughts and views and opinions that might be useful, and I hope that they are. So, that being said, I want to now introduce you to Tanisha Naughton, or rather, Miss Wellness. And I figure she is a referral from Sam Leibowitz, our executive producer. So, I always welcome his referrals because I learn a lot from you guys, and as well as I have continued to get his support right here on the show. So, Tanisha, I'm going to let you just introduce yourself to everyone. Give us your background. Give us, your views on stress awareness.
Yeah,
Welcome to the
well,
show.
thank you, Frank. It's a pleasure to be here. As you said, I am Tanisha. I am a women's wellness empowerment coach, and I'm working with corporate women who are on the brink of burnout, and I'm helping them relieve that stress through wellness, mindfulness tactics that can just allow them to reclaim their health and fall back in love with themselves. And I do a lot through the inner child healing play. Play is very important with my practice, just having more fun and doing small sustainable habits that can show these women wellness doesn't have to be so hard and overcoming burnout doesn't always have to be so daunting either.
No, that sounds very nice. Are you more of an advocate, or do you have training in this form of stress management that you've been able to acquire patients and treat them accordingly? Or how is it that you got into this line of healthcare?
So it's both, actually.
Okay.
Life was my biggest, I'd say, lesson is because I experienced it firsthand. So my background before I became a wellness empowerment coach was a social worker. And for anyone who knows about the social work world, it is very tedious. It's a lot of hours. It's underpaid usually. And I've worked in homeless shelters. I've worked in foster care. I'm from New York originally. So I've also worked in New York City public schools as a school mental health consultant, all tough jobs. And
Wow.
yeah, so I've worked in the mental health space, social work space. And my experience is that we are always helping people with their mental health and helping them try to move through different phases in their lives. Our clients is who I'm talking about. But us as the
Mhm.
employees, we didn't always receive the same type of mental health support that we needed. And so I experienced, it was around 2016, my first dose of burnout, but I didn't know it was burnout at the time because it wasn't a term that people were really talking about, even in my space. So I was
Yes.
experiencing a lot of exhaustion, fatigue. I wasn't my normal smiling, happy-go-lucky, energetic self, and I was a supervisor at foster care at this time. And I remember there was a client who was dealing with her own things, and she was yelling at me, and I yelled back. And that was the first time where it was very apparent that I'm not myself. Yeah, and it was very out the norm for
You were
me as a
triggered.
person. Yeah, yeah, I was very, very triggered. And so it made me take a step back that maybe I just need to leave this job because it's the job, right? Like it's not me and what's going on with myself. It's just a job that I don't like anymore and I want to get better pay. But it went on for about almost a month or more, and to the point where it actually hit depression for me. And that's when I realized, like, okay, if I would have known back then what it was, instead of trying to ignore it, also as a woman of color and parents who aren't from this country, we don't always acknowledge mental health. So I just kept pushing through. I'm a previous athlete, I'm a high overachiever. You just keep going. And
Right.
so I have all that against me at this time. And it came to a point where I just broke down crying consistently. And I was, even though I was sleeping, it felt like I didn't get enough sleep. And like I said, it did form into depression. That was just the first time that this occurred in my life. It's probably happened about 2 to 3 times, from transitioning from a full-time employee to an entrepreneur as well. It's happened. And then in between that time in my life. So life has been my lesson, has been my teacher. And from there, I then started educating myself. But working in the social work field, you do learn about stress management, you do learn about depression and anxiety, but burnout just wasn't a topic at that time that we really went deep into. Even things like meditation, those weren't talked about in 2016 in the space that I was in.
Ah, very interesting. So when you actually were going to college, or either I guess it was a master's degree program, were you training to be a social worker with the healthcare mindset or as an agency mindset, also working with public safety and public wellness and public health? Where was your personal focus?
So I'm actually going to throw you for a loop because I didn't go to school for social work. I have a
Oh,
minor in psychology. I've always been in the public services. So my master's is actually in criminal justice.
very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice.
But you have to take social work, you have to take psychology classes. And actually, at one point, I was going to get my master's in school psychology because that was always the route that I was going. So I actually graduated my master's in 2013. So the job that we're talking about was after this. But once you have a public service type of public health, you tend to get put into these type of jobs. And because I'm a very people person, I understand how to talk to people. I'm really good with the counseling. It's always been inside of me. I just think sometimes there's a lot of training and certifications are amazing, and going to college for these things are great. And sometimes you just have an innate gift. And since I was a child, people have always been coming to me about their problems. It's just always the route. I thought I would have been a psychologist. Life just didn't happen out that way. So my first job
Right.
being in the homeless shelters, working with people who didn't have homes, also working with people who were bipolar, ADHD, had ADHD, had a lot of things going on. I was always able to talk to any kind of person and be able to help them work through their situations. And from that job, then I went into foster care. And that's where the burnout occurred after working there for 3 years. So between those times, we always did trainings weekly, monthly on these different type of things, how to interact when a client is heated and is trying to throw things at you or is trying to fight you. How do you work around that? How do you work on stress management within your client? So we were always getting trained, even though I didn't go to school for it.
Interesting. Well, I guess your experience in criminal justice at least got you to see how public policy decisions on the state level or even on the federal level are made in social work conditions, whether it is, like you say, the foster care system or people in homeless shelters. I mean, you're not looking exactly at the criminal mindset, but let's look at some of the realities. Unfortunately, some criminals are prosecuted when they're really suffering from a mental health disorder, and people don't see it as that. They just look at the crime and prosecute that individual accordingly. But you were able, therefore, to see both sides of the fence, per se, when being in the social work experience, even though your education was more on criminal justice. And I guess your own ability to provide empathy to others, even when they had their own limitations, was enabling you to be as engaging and productive as you were as a social worker before you reached burnout. Correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. I look at everyone as an individual. We all have stories, we all have backgrounds, and it's just taking the time to listen to that story and not judge. So that's what I bring into my practice. I'm very big on no shame, no guilt. Show up as you are. And sometimes I even say, like, show up as the mess that you are. Like, don't try to be perfect around me because we're all going through things and we need a sacred space. And that's what I hold. And that's why I focus now on helping women who are experiencing burnout, but I do it through more, like I mentioned, a very self-love, a very playful manner, because these subjects that we're talking about are very tough, right? And sometimes women, especially, they have all these burdens and they don't want to dive into it I will say that I do have this gift where people do love to throw a lot of things at me in the beginning, very early on. But then there's also times
Yeah.
where you need to take it slow. And it's okay for us to focus on the journaling or meditation. And that's now I blend the holistic side with talking about these stress management techniques that one can use, because sometimes that's what the person needs. It's not diving in, because I'm not a clinical psychologist where I'm not going to prescribe you medication. That's not my thing. That's not what I do.
Right.
We're going to do self-discovery.
Right.
We're going to explore you as a human. So self-discovery is what I work on the most with these women who are experiencing burnout. So I just want to make that clear. Like, it's the social workers and the psychologists. I love
Cool.
what you want to do. That's amazing. But I'm coming from more mindfulness empowerment. And that's what we're focusing on, the mind, body, and soul of an individual.
You know, one of my observations, and this is, again, I'm not a social worker, but I do observe that social work has a little, it operates on a gray area, which is why I think that a lot of the state, especially in like New York, for example, gets involved, because it's the question of the kind of care the individual needs, and does it fit their income level? Are they eligible for social support programs that are available? And then the bureaucratic process takes into effect and kind of dehumanizes the individual in its process. Although it requires someone like yourself in that social work position to be the mediator between the state as well as the person's condition. But that is where there are no rules on how to overcome burnout when you really have not a separation of church and state. What would be the right analogy here? Individual and social, or society, and I don't know if anyone is ever really fully prepared to manage burnout, because it's almost like a given, especially in that field. Would that be safe to say?
I mean, if you're going to experience it probably at one time or another, if you don't have the right
Right.
tools, I think, in place, if you have a good support system, if you're in therapy consistently, I think that that's a better way to manage it. If you have an empowerment coach like myself, you have the people around you, then I feel that any social worker, any person who's working in a high end, high stress job, that you can manage burnout. Because the point is to get to it before you hit burnout, not go and get the help like I probably would have done after I'm already in the thick of it, because then it's hard to swim your way up, right, to the top. So,
Correct. Yeah.
it's hard to manage these things. We're about proactive care. That's what I focus on the most.
It's amazing too, because I figure, if anything, a lot of the people that are in the social work system for whatever reason have already been going through a life without proper boundaries. And I think it is boundaries that we need in order to cope with potential burnout within our own individual lives. I mean, to being not only the recipient of social care, social work services, or at the same time the administrator of those services, there's a constant balancing act between not only being aware of the situation and, of course, the regulations involved in managing it, but keeping that inner balance between yourself and the situation. So I think in our next section, because we're about to take our first break, but in our next section, I'd like to learn more about your story, how you were in that position, and then by sheer experience, you were able to individuate and become Miss Wellness as you are. And I think you'll be able to help those fellow social workers out there that are probably experiencing burnout right now, how to be a role model for them, and how to either cope with it in that position or branch out to be more entrepreneurial in their caregiving. So, ladies and gentlemen, one thing I did not say is that we are live from Las Vegas at the Alara Hilton Grand Vacations and Hilton Club. And so we wanted to be able to have this setting because it's kind of a stress releaser. At the same time, we will learn throughout the rest of the hour how Miss Wellness, or rather how Tanisha, uses her practice by getting involved, I guess, sort of with the hospitality industry, but definitely helping people engage in getting out of the home and getting into social settings that are helping in stress management. So when we return right here on Frank About Health, we will learn more about Tanisha and her retreats and her program. And we are available right now on TalkRadio.nyc, as well as YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitch. So please stay tuned, and we'll be back in a few.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on TalkRadio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on TalkRadio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on TalkRadio.nyc.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on TalkRadio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. As you just saw during the commercial break, I showed you I guess you could say, was it the cover page of your website or was it your retreat page? To really, you could talk more about what's going to be happening in October, but at the same time, to wrap that into how you moved on from the field of social work to really not just overcome your own burnout, but at the same time, really share that knowledge that you inherited with your community that you now engage with. So explain exactly your story.
Yeah, thank you. So to explain my story, I have to explain a little bit about my mom, who actually is a part of my why and why I'm in business. So my mom actually at the time when I was having burnout, she was diagnosed with having diabetes. And I was actually at this time about 35 pounds overweight. And I'm a former college athlete, so that's why I mentioned the high overachiever. Like I've known to just keep going no matter what's going on in my life. And the same thing when she was sick, but my mom went temporarily blind at this time. And it was an extremely stressful time. So again, I didn't know what burnout was, but when I look back, I can see all the stressors that were going on in my life as to why it could happen in addition to my high stressful job. So I became my mom's caretaker. And all the medications were not working for her. Like I said, she went temporarily blind. Her fatigue, her energy was extremely low. She was losing weight. And I decided to take a more natural path for my mom. We looked into alternative medications, and that happened to be herbs, in addition to following a more vegan lifestyle. And about a year later, she was pre-diabetic. She didn't need her medications. And so I continued on from there with this vegan lifestyle, with using herbs, focusing on more natural ways to help. And helping her, it helped me, one, to lose the weight, but two, I started learning about different herbs that can help calm me down with the stress that I was going through, that can help me with the pain that was going on in my body. Because one thing that I know I didn't do at that time was I didn't grieve what was happening with my mom. I just dove in. And that's what I'm known to do, is just handle what's going on around my life. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to pause. I'm going to be this strong woman. And so as a woman of color, we're known to be like that strong Black woman has that label. And it's like, you don't pause, you don't stop. And so I was able to do that. It was amazing. And we celebrated. But then I left the job where I had what I thought the burnout was just from the job, but it was truly from my mom, the job, a toxic relationship. It was a lot of things at one time. So I moved on to the school mental health consultant job in New York City. And at the time, that's where I started birthing my business. So I got my holistic health coaching certification. Yeah. And I just started learning about ways where I can reclaim my health. I did it with my mom. I've done it with myself. Now I want to help people. And now I want to coach people and empower them to do what I've been doing. And from there, I started in my job, actually, we started learning about meditation for schools to give it to the school staff and to give it to kids. And I didn't catch on at that time yet, but it was like the universe's way of saying, this is my push for you. Like, we're putting this in your face. Like, these are ways, these are modalities to relax. And what I learned was that I just didn't like doing it in a group setting. But when I did it by myself, it's like I feel better. Even just 5-10 minutes. Like, I'm very big on small sustainable changes within a person's lifestyle. So you'll never hear me say I went on a vegan diet. Like, no, I'm a plant-based is how I identify. And that's my lifestyle. How I eat, how I sleep, everything that I do, it's a lifestyle change because that means it's forever. There's no end. In a diet, you always have an amount of time, right? Like 3 months until I fit into the dress or until I go on vacation. And that's harder because then you're just gonna hit it and then it's like, I'm done. It's like, this is never done. Life is forever ongoing. So within that, I was able to overcome burnout that first time. I started feeling better, but then I had a time where I was drinking a lot. I always mention this because it's part of my story. And I actually passed out on a train. And it was due to, yeah, it was due to the drinking, but it's due to the stress. And again, I got hit with, people thought that I had MS, and the doctors wanted to either give me an injection to my spine or take medication. So it was like the same but different with my mom. And I just found that I was like, neither of these sound great because they're pretty sure I don't have it, but they still want to check. I'm like, but checking isn't going on medication. Yeah. So from there, I again just paused and I was like, this isn't going to work. And I just left. And that's when I really got really intense with taking herbs for myself and drinking more water and getting even cleaner with what I'm eating. And that allowed my mind to open up to really meditation, to journaling. And those are ways that I've been able to overcome burnout, is getting the thoughts outside of my head, getting it onto paper and going outside into nature. Nature is probably one of my biggest ways to reset my nervous system. Just being outside with the trees, it's free air. I always say, right? Like Mother Nature, it just feels good. Putting my feet in the grass, grounding, those things. And I didn't have the awareness that I was doing those things for burnout. I was just doing it because I'm an athlete. I love to be out. I love to hike, but it was freeing. And I always felt better when I did it. And so that was something.
Yes.
And when I left, right. So when I left New York, 2021, the end of 2021, during the whole pandemic, when I moved to Georgia, I would say that that was probably my biggest healing on overcoming burnout, because now I'm probably hiking 2-3 times a week because it's a very serene out here. It's very quiet. It's very peaceful. And sometimes you do need to remove yourself if you have the ability to from your environment. New York was very chaotic for me. And so within that, I started journaling every single day. I started meditating every single day, going outside, eating cleaner, taking myself on detoxes where I'm abstaining from food, because sometimes you need to be able to cleanse your mind, body, and soul. And it can sound extreme, but if you're willing to get out of the situation that you're in, sometimes you'll take that. But you don't have to do a week detox. Sometimes it's just a day of not eating food and having juices and smoothies and water. People are like, oh, I gotta stop eating for 2-3 weeks. Again, that's not sustainable. Like, don't do that if you've never done it before. So that's where I merge the wellness with empowerment. Like, I'm here to guide you along your journey. I'm not here to uproot you and put you in a whole different ball game of like, become plant-based today. That's not it. And that's also not everybody's story or their journey, but it was mine. And I am a better channel for working with people energetically when I am eating cleaner, when I do detox. Even my meditations are clearer when I'm in this free-flowing state. So that is a very long way to answer your question, but that is the reason why I am focusing on these retreats, and we can get into that as well. But yeah, that's how I've gotten to where I am now.
Well, it sounds like your mother was a catalyst in all of it, especially with the fact that as you were already going through burnout in the workplace and then having to deal with the stress surrounding her own health, you found yourself by default engaging in these special programs for yourself that I guess you could say the logical part of your brain or the entrepreneurial part of your brain decided, well, these are programs that I can offer others. Now that I've learned it, you earned the right to call yourself Miss Wellness because you basically were able, through your own personal experience, to formulate your business model. And I guess, like you said, we will talk in the third segment more about your retreats and things like that. But for your mother to be the catalyst, one question I have is, you said she was temporarily blind. Was it some of the work that you were doing with her that brought her sight back?
Yeah, it was. It was eating clean. So I became the person who was making all the food. So at home, we were eating pretty much all the vegan food and drinking the herbs, even when she didn't want to. I was like, you're going to have this burdock root, just to give a quick health tip. Like, burdock root is really great for cleaning your blood. So that was something she was drinking consistently. And yeah, it was able to help her because I didn't know at the time that diabetes would do that. And when my mom said that she couldn't see, I was beyond. I can't even get the word out, like, when I think about it, but it's scared. Scared is the word that comes out now, but back then it was probably petrified. And it was very temporary, like not long, but yeah, the work, I think, is what has, not think, I know is what's helped her get back to where she is, because her skin color wasn't even the same back then versus now. My mom looks younger than the age that she is today. So it's amazing what things can do.
Did the doctor say what in particular helped with your mother's sight? Was it the herbs themselves, or was it the food you were offering her, or both?
So that is the hilarious part, is that when we went back to the doctor to do her blood work, so I don't even think that my mom shared about her temporary sight with her doctor, because we were just doing our own thing. But when she went to do her blood work and he deemed her pre-diabetic, didn't need her medications, he told her, I wasn't with her at the time, that I don't know what your daughter did, but just tell her to keep doing it. So the regular doctor, Western society, practitioner, had no clue. He couldn't pinpoint it. But obviously it wasn't the same as to where she was when he was with her taking all the medications.
Well, she did have diabetes type 2, or was it type 1?
Type 2.
Well, type 2. Right. As type 2 has always been questionable, because like I had on my show a couple years ago, a nutritionist come on and talk about how that it's all about your food and all the intake of your food, and measuring, of course, your sugars with your carbohydrates and whatever. But in the discussion we had back then, he had mentioned that most people don't realize that type 2 can actually be considered reversible. It's just how you own your condition and what foods and exercise and treatments and things that you do to make the symptoms that most medical professionals probably won't see as reversible. They'll just know the medication is what you take to keep yourself sustained. But no, the reality is type 2 is actually an opportunity for you to actually at one point in time reverse it. I can tell you, my cousin, who right now has different types of conditions, she was diabetic type 2. And because she lost so much weight because of another condition, she's no longer diabetic. But at the same time, it took another condition to get her away from something that she thought she had to live the rest of her life with. So right. I guess that's just one of those anomalies we'll get to live and learn depending on our situation. Well, it appears we're about to take another break. When we return right here on Frank About Health, we're going to learn not just about how you heard the story of how Tanisha and her mother's experience not only helped her overcome burnout, but it also helped her develop her mindfulness practice and her retreats, which we're just going to take some time to really explore a lot in the next section. So please stay tuned right here on TalkRadio.nyc and on all of our socials, and we will be back in a few.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on TalkRadio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on TalkRadio.nyc.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, And each week, top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on TalkRadio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on TalkRadio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey everybody, we're back in segment 3 right now. If you all saw my last commercial break, I showed you the episode I started the month with Karen Ross and I in Chicago, and Dr. Orman and his book, The Anger Cure, which is still available for free download until April 30th. I just wanted to give you guys a reminder on that, especially as you just heard Tanisha's story and how she was able to overcome burnout while at the same time helping her mother recover from what she presumed was diabetic blindness. Among other situations that occurred, you did touch upon how during a train ride you were unconscious and people thought you had multiple sclerosis. Isn't it interesting how perception kind of drives the narrative? And yet the reality is for us not to get stuck on that narrative from others, just to be aware of your own internal mechanisms that make you work. And apparently you were, because we're going to learn now about how you were able to turn this into your own practice where you actually engage with others in retreats. So why don't you share what that's about?
Yeah, absolutely. I have been on such a journey. In my business, I will say I've been a vegan coach first. Then I went to women's wellness empowerment coach, and I was working with individuals one-on-one, being their accountability coach, helping them more on the nutrition side, and also just seeing that everyone needs a cheerleader and just helping them in that setting to get to their goals. But within that, I've learned that I'm able to hold sacred containers for women as well in group settings and just let everyone share their story, because I believe that every woman has a story to share and it's important and it's valuable. It's not just about me sharing what I have going on and helping you move through. Sometimes hearing somebody else's story is empowering to another person. So I realized that probably last year, although I would say I've been put on the path, because in New York about 2018, I was actually holding my own wellness events. They were one-day events in New York. They were called Miss Wellness Presents Soulful Saturdays. And I would bring in the community. I'm from Long Island, New York originally. And we would have financial advisors come through, because I'm really big on your wellness is your finances, your health, your mindset. It's everything. So I may not be talking to you about finances, but I have the people and I have the community and I have the network, and I'm a big community person. So I would throw those events every couple of months. And when I moved here, I was like, I know I'm going to get back to it, but I didn't know how and I didn't know when. But last year in the summertime, it just felt like I kept getting the call in that it's time. So I did my first one-day event here in Conyers, Georgia, actually, and it was on just a nice reset. So people came, we had fresh juices for them. We made actually a herbal blend that was a body oil. I showed people how to do it in a classroom setting, and people were so amazed as to how easy it was to make their own natural oil, and we infused it with crystals. If anyone's into crystals, they have a lot of healing energy in it. And sometimes I always say Mother Nature provides everything that we need, but sometimes you need to be in a space for someone to show you that. And that's what I do. I'm a guide, and I've accepted as my calling. Like, I'm a teacher, I'm a healer in that. And so we were having conversations, we did journaling sessions. And from there, I thought about, well, I always need that retreat. I always need a reset during that time when I was dealing with burnout, but I never got it. I may have went away every couple of months, but it wasn't enough because I was probably still not getting rest. Sometimes you have those vacations, right, where you're doing all the excursions, you're out here, you're out there, but you're not truly focusing on yourself and quieting down. So that leads to the retreat that you showed, the Cosmic Self-Love Playground. And in this retreat, it's for the corporate woman who, whether you've experienced burnout or you're really tired and exhausted, this is for you to have your reset, for you to love back on you, to rejuvenate your soul. I intentionally have downtime where you will be on your own, experiencing quiet, being in nature. It's in Douglasville, Georgia, from October 14th to the 17th of this year, 2024. And it really is just taking time to understand, like, are your values the same? Have you been taking time for yourself? Have you been putting other people before you? Like, what are your boundaries? Do you know them and do you stick to them? Those are questions that I open up in the space. And we mentioned slightly about the inner child healing. So I've learned that a lot of us forget about the little, little Frank, little Tanisha. What did we like doing as a kid? And are we still doing those things? We come to this societal adult world where it's like, oh, I have to be so serious. I have to make the money. I got to take care of everyone. But we're not having fun. And in that, that's where things can get blocked. Energy can get blocked. Sometimes your back pain is actually a lack of fun, in addition to the lack of fear and maybe your financial stability. And we don't think about those things. So that's the type of space and the energy that I'm bringing into these retreats, is to let you have time to actually look at yourself. And I'm going to be there guiding you within that, and then healing you within the plant-based foods. Everything's going to be natural foods, juices, smoothies. We have a chef that'll be there. And then just those mindfulness times, right? So we're going to be doing some stretching, meditation, and having that time to ask me questions if there are any, but doing some DIY workshops where I mentioned the deodorant, like making things yourself and seeing how, okay, well, I can do this. I don't need to buy the deodorant that's cancerous. I don't have to have these things that are slowly killing me, even though I'm not aware of it. But we're going to bring those things into awareness at this retreat. And that playful part is going to be games. We're going to do the Uno, have the game night, have the open mic night, move your body. Dance is so healing. It is the free and easiest modality there is for someone to help with overcoming burnout, and doing it in a playful manner. So that I'm so grateful that I've come to this place, that I've had these experiences. I may not have believed that it was great at the time, right? But now I can understand why, because now I have the vision as to what I want to do and how I want to help people, and continuously run retreats. And some of them are in Airbnbs. This one will be. And in the future, some of them will be out the country, being in hotels, and just having that very earthly vibe. I'm a very earthly down nature girl. So that's what I usually strive for in the environment. I want people to feel that, because like I said, nature is healing, but it's just a different feel being in the jungle, right? Versus like being outside in the city and, like having an apartment. It's so different. You're a more clearer channel. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. And, I invite anyone that's interested, definitely apply for the Cosmic Self-Love Playground retreat. And yeah, just taking time off for you. I know sometimes we think like, oh, I can't take days off, but what can you do? 3 days away, and with a sisterhood too. So we're building community with each other. It's not just going to be you. You're going to have people who are going through the same thing that you're going through, or in a different way. And it may not be my story, but it might be somebody else's that really pushes you. And then you leave with a couple of friends too.
So basically, in terms of the Airbnb, and they have to sign up with your website, or do they work directly with you on a social media page to apply for the retreat? How does that get people to be involved?
So you go straight to the first site that you listed, which was the Miss Wellness Cosmic Playground website, and then click on I'm ready for self-love. That will take you to a form that someone fills out. And then you will book a call with me, because I want to make sure that it's a good fit for both people, and that I'm having the right individuals. So I'm only bringing 9 aligned souls on this first retreat here in Georgia. And so, yeah, it definitely has to be special and intentional. So I love having a conversation with someone beforehand. So yes, definitely apply, fill out the form, book a call with me, and then we'll hop on a call and see if it's a fit. And I'm going to be doing pretty much actually $500 off until May 15th for people who are signing up and listening to this as well. So definitely take advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I gather if you're watching live right now, or even if you're watching this after the fact, just remember that you have until May 15th. That's about a month, actually 3 weeks from now, to go ahead and participate in these retreats. I'm kind of curious, why Airbnbs? Is that because you're still starting things out and you're really trying to expand beyond that?
Honestly, as a traveler myself, so I mentioned how I used to go away every 3 months. I love Airbnbs versus the hotels because I like privacy. So in my
Yes.
experience of hotels, even all-inclusive hotels, there's still someone right next door to you. I don't know who they are. And on a big floor, right? There's multiple people. There's kids,
Right,
there's all
right.
those things. I get to control it in an Airbnb setting. It's like, okay, it's a 5-bedroom house. It's just me and my friends, and that's it. So that's my preference within that. I just like that setting, but I do like the perks of an
Right.
all-inclusive hotel resort, right? Like I love the drinks, the food. Airbnb, you have to bring that. So it's a trade-off, right? It depends on what you like, but for me, I like going to bed with no noise. So Airbnbs for me always usually hit, but
I understand. I understand. I mean, I would say also, like, if I were to look at the Hilton family, because that's where we are today, there are so many different brands within it, but Hampton Inn comes a close second to the Airbnb model. I see. So if you were, for example, to get into a Hilton type of relationship in the future, you would definitely want to start small. You wouldn't go to the Waldorf Astoria. You would just start out at a Hampton Inn and then work your way up through Hilton Garden Inn and then eventually DoubleTree maybe. The thing is that of course, once you continue to develop your brand as Miss Wellness and your website presence and your social media presence, I think maybe you're going to want to develop a podcast, or at least probably even have video summaries of how those retreats were, especially the one in October. So you can really show that whatever people missed out on in 2024, they can really participate in 2025. And who knows 2025 is going to bring to all of us, but hopefully it will allow us to manage our stress much better on all fronts.
absolutely. And you,
So, well, I just got to say, it's not so much a personal story, but, I have been dealing with, as most of my listeners and viewers know, out in New York City where I live and work, and also am caregiving for my father, my cousin, and other people. I think I was going through burnout recently, but what I notice is that while doing this show, it's been able for me to talk with people like yourself about what I'm going through hearing your own story as well. And by putting myself in other locations, like in Chicago or even here in Las Vegas, I feel like it's helping me go through a retreat of some sort. So I do believe in your whole perspective that getting away from your comfort zone, if that's the right word, whether it's your home or your office or whatever, and just being in an environment that's totally different and experiencing yourself, reflecting, working with others, it's definitely something I would highly recommend. So I think that's what's happening to me here. I'm finding myself on a relaxed level, but a little bit nervous, also making sure that there are no technical difficulties as we're having this conversation. But I'm hoping that there is a lot of takeaway where people are going to learn the value of these retreats and actually participate just from watching the show alone. So please give me your feedback of how many people actually saw the show as they sign up. It would be interesting to see what kind of that the show, this particular show, had for you. And you said October 14th through 17th?
Yes, October
Nice.
14th to the 17th. Yeah, looking forward to it, and I definitely will.
Awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we come back, I'm going to try my best to show you guys the Alara backdrop in our next commercial break. But if I even sense technical difficulties, at least you know you can find it yourself on YouTube. So we'll be back after this brief message from Hilton Grand Vacations, the Alara Hilton Club. Back in a few.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills, on TalkRadio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on TalkRadio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on TalkRadio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on TalkRadio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on TalkRadio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. So, Tanisha, can you do me a favor and tell me, were you able to see clearly and transparently how the Alara looks in its backdrop and stuff like that?
I did
during the
not.
commercial break?
I did not know.
Okay, so I gather that probably what I'm noticing is that as I'm looking at the videos, as I'm sharing the screen, probably the bandwidth of the YouTube file is blackening out the space. That's what that.
Yeah, I saw I saw your logo. That's what I saw.
Okay, but other than my logo, when at least I showed your website, were people able to see it?
I did see.
Okay, good. And they were able to see also my homepage where I showed the book with Dr. Orman.
Yep.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, it's nice to promote Alara and Hilton, and I truly believe in them. They've been a good partner for me right here on Frank About Health. But the real aspect of Stress Awareness Month is showing you your resources that you need in order to make sure that you maintain your stress and avoid burnout. And you did get, obviously, for the last 45 minutes, a whole understanding of Tanisha's story and what she's been able to do with her whole retreats program that she's developing. And you also did get another reminder to get that download of that free book before April 30th, as well as an understanding of how you can sign up for the retreat. So I'm doing my part to help with Stress Awareness Management Month, and I'm just doing my best to also get your story across because you're still in development with your practice, correct?
With the retreat part. So with coaching people, no, been doing that for a while now. So yeah, now it's just about the retreats and eventually doing this for corporations with helping their employees directly with burnout and doing wellness workshops. So that is the newest venture, I would say, that is being worked on.
Okay. And I can tell you I'm doing my best to also work with Hilton and making Frank About Health more inclusive, not just for the show itself, but also for having potential live events in the future, probably even book clubs, people who have their own books that they want to be able to share with the timeshare owners or the residents of the various hotels, or not to mention the management of those hotels. So let's just see how long we only met today, but at the same time, as we continue to collaborate over the next 8 months or so, let's see how we are able to eventually possibly do something together with Hilton. No promises, but only hope.
I walk by faith. So
you won't what? I missed that.
I walk by faith. So whatever is meant to be will be. So I love it.
Exactly. And for me, it's been a situation where, I ended up getting involved with Hilton originally because of the pandemic, especially in New York when they were turning their hotels into essential worker homes. But when I eventually worked with the people here in Las Vegas back in 2021, it has been a slow, gradual build. But I think I'm at a point where I'm ready to start negotiating things for the new year. I just, I'm going on faith like you are, and I'm also going on just seeing what is rather than seeing what I want to see.
Yes, I understand that.
Because otherwise that'll create stress unto itself, and that'll be counterproductive.
I've been in both stages, so yes.
So overall, what would you want the Frank About Health listeners and viewers to know most about what your plans are for the future, not just with your retreats, but with your overall programs that you still continue to develop over time? I gather you're not going to become a social worker again. You're going to stick with your own direction going forward. I can understand that.
Yeah.
When you already know what burns you out, you try to work distance rather than completely gone from them. But what are your plans to be more inclusive within your own practice?
Yeah, so it's actually to be more, I'd say, worldwide. So like I mentioned, being a big community person, I've known that my other gift is networking. So just how like we've interacted and now we're doing this podcast interview, I'm able to touch a lot of people. And that's why I like my business being predominantly online for the most part, minus the retreats. And so I definitely see this community, whether it's an app or something digital that I will be creating, where we can all network, we can all connect with each other, and in addition to that, being given wellness and self-discovery that I'll be teaching on. So something could be similar to a platform like Mind Valley, something of that nature, but just it wouldn't be the same because that's very spiritual and mindfulness based. I like to be all inclusive and have people and experts on sharing their wisdom too, and not just me. So each one teach one type of platform is what I know eventually will happen. And then from that, the retreats will always be occurring. So that's what I can kind of see. It's not fully there with the picture, but I do know in some capacity it would be networking parties and coaching within that realm. And from there, hear your videos on burnout, to help people walk through, because everyone learns different too. Not everyone wants a workshop. Sometimes they want a self-paced video. So I like to work in both realms, both worlds. And from time to time, then I could be a consultant for some large corporations and just come in a couple of months and do these workshops too. So I think I'll be doing a couple of things because I do think I'm multi-passionate and I love to travel. So that's a beautiful part about doing those workshops and the retreats, and then having something that someone in India or Switzerland can touch as well. I think that's great, where we can bring the environment, we can bring the world together and just be one.
Right. So you would say that predominantly about 70 to 80% of your practice is going to be virtual, whether it's through a Zoom platform or social media or an app, as you indicated. And then the other 20 to 30% is pretty much those retreats where everybody has already created that social network that you're formulating through Miss Wellness. And then you'll all gather together once a year or something like that. That's how you see things in the long term, or at least the mid-range term.
Yeah, the mid-range. Yeah, I definitely see at least retreats being 3 times a year, and then having, like you said, that 60 to 70% online, because there's something about saying like, oh, I'm going to Costa Rica and then I'm going to the woods in Georgia for a retreat. It's just beautiful. It's a different feel. And in addition to that, hosting my weekly Zooms that I already do, and it's very easy to manage because I can be away at the location of the retreat while hosting my events. It's just that I would get to the retreat spot right before it's time for my guests to come. So it's a beautiful life as that digital nomad, having the ability or the luxury to travel like that. So I'm grateful. Like I know I'll be in New York in a couple of months, so I hopefully look forward to meeting you, and I'll still be working and I'll be planning my retreat that's in October. So yeah.
Well, I do welcome that. I mean, I can tell you many of the guests that have been on the show, again, partially thanks to Sam, I've ended up meeting in person in New York. And we actually, we're working on some of those members and I are working on a side project right now for Frank About Health that'll be released along the next few months or so. But we all gathered together at a Hilton in New York for a week to meet up and go out to dinner and at the same time work and collaborate on that project, which is going to hopefully make the platform that I've built over almost 3 years now become more expandable and interactive and engaging especially from the level of not just being, in the hybrid mode, not the hybrid, the virtual mode that the pandemic forced us into, but eventually to do the kind of thing like I was saying with your practice, where we get together once a year, hopefully, or or twice a year, to, during holidays or whatever, to be able to say, yes, I do breathe. I am a human being. I'm not behind a screen and a nameplate all the time, but that we're all together as kind of a family, but at the same time doing what we can to continue to advocate for different healthcare issues, whether it is stress or whether it's cardiac care or everything else that we've been talking about over the last 3 years. Now, when people want to sign up or find you rather, whether it's on social media or whatever, do they have email addresses for you, or do you have other places where people can find you?
Yeah, definitely. My email is Tanisha at MissWellnessLLC.com. So it's MSWellnessLLC.com. You can just email me directly. But of course, I have Instagram, YouTube, which they're both plant-based vibes, PLANTBASEVIBES. We'll see about TikTok.
Yeah.
I do have it. It's the same handle, plant-based vibes, but we'll see what happens with that platform. And then on LinkedIn, you can find me at Tanisha Naughton, last name NAUGHTON. And of course, my website that you shared, www.mswellnessllc.com.
Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I see I'm 1 minute to ending, so I think we have the full picture here on Stress Awareness Month for the last 4 weeks on Frank About Health, beginning with Dr. Mort Orman and ending the month with Tanisha Naughton, or otherwise known as Miss Wellness. And I think those 4 episodes that we broadcasted were showing ways of being able to deal with stress either through your own knowledge base that you get from reading books like Dr. Orman presents, or even learning about AI and how it can help us with stress management techniques, which we did when we did a retrospective episode on Maury Zelkovich. And last week when Sally Kalksma returned and we talked about her understanding that she had another disease that actually triggered the one that she had been battling for most of the last 5 years. That talk about stressful, and realizing that the cure was recognized. I mean, the cause was recognized after the problem. But here, understanding that the value of retreats and finding your way away from home, getting into a different environment just to reframe, refocus, revive, revitalize. I mean, that's what I would say would be the mantra I learned this month. So I'm going to just sign off by saying, because of the limited amount of time, that I will be back next week on another episode of Frank About Health with Karen Ross. We're going to kick off Blood Pressure Awareness Month. And I understand it's also Mental Health Awareness Month. So next month, we're going to have 2 shows together. One on May 2nd and one on May 16th. The one on May 16th will be live from Chicago's Hilton, the Doubletree. But the one next week will be through Zoom, like Tanisha and I did today. And I just want to thank you all again for listening to this episode of Frank About Health. And we will see you all next week. So thank you again, Tanisha, for being here. And thank you all. And thank you, Sam, for the introduction. And of course, Logan, thank you for all the work you do. We will see you all next week. Take care.